Now the pigs have been processed and it's time to make the bacon and the sausage. Woo! Come along today while I make some of our favorite Amish sausage. Hey friends, it's Barbara Sue at Kowalski Mountain and welcome back to the homestead. Now you might not remember or be aware that more than a year ago we got, I think there were six free pigs. Now you know what they say about free animals is they're not free, and they're not. But Philip cannot pass up a free meal. And so a lady reached out and said she wanted these pigs gone. They kept getting out of her fences and she wanted them gone. And she needed someone to come get them today. Well, we loaded up the truck and we headed out to get our pig. Now, most of them were males and they were older, and while we did castrate one, it was so difficult that we did not do the others. Now, slowly over time, we've been butchering them, and we were down to the last 3. 2 of them were boars, and they were causing some problems with our breeding boar, Oreo, and he kept breaking through the fences to fight. Those coony boars had to go. Now, the meat has been on ice. We always age our meat before we process it. And now it's time for me to process it out. Now today I'm going to be making sausage and bacon, and I need to see how much we have to start. So we only have a little over 14 pounds, and I really wanted 25. Now today I'm going to be making our favorite Amish sausage, and this was a recipe given to us by our Amish neighbors, but it's for 100 pounds of pork. Now I can't speak for all Amish, but our neighbors and our friends, when they butcher a pig and they let them get really big, like 500 or 600 pounds big, and then they grind everything, all of it, the entire pig, except for maybe a meal. Because they don't have any refrigeration. So they grind everything and then they pressure can it. And they do pressure can it. I don't know about you, but I just don't think I could eat ground meat every single day. That is how they preserve their meat, is by canning, and that's how they do it. Now it is already fly season here, which is very upsetting. But it is, so I do my best with flies and I go around here like a crazy woman, but I can't stop them. So please forgive me if you see a fly. This is a farm and I do my best. Now, first thing on the agenda, I had to cut up all this meat into usable portions. They needed to be in sizes that would go through the grinder, which they are, and now it's time to grind the pork. Now I have my setup here, and this is my RV kitchen, so you are looking at the entire kitchen. Now this is our meat grinder, and I have a medium plate on it. We don't like the meat cut up too fine. That's kind of our happy place. Now, a couple things I've done. I have elevated my grinder so that it's higher than my pans. And if you watched my last video about processing chickens, I talked about a step stool. Now, the step stool is the perfect height. You can see it's above the pan, but it's also very sturdy. It can take me pushing on the meat. Now, another thing I do is I put a piece of saran wrap over my controls. My controls are over here, but that means that I don't get it dirty if I need to turn it on and off while I'm working. Now here is my meat, and it's all cut up and ready to go. So let's grind up some sausage. All right, I'm gonna keep this cover on here until I'm ready to proceed. I'm gonna clean up my mess and I'll be right back. Now, as I was grinding this up, and the machine is so loud I couldn't talk to you, but all I could think about was, I think it was in the 90s, they used to push that pork was the other white meat. Well, let me tell you, my farm-raised pork is not white. Not at all. This looks gorgeous. Now, my Amish friends gave me this sausage recipe, which is why I'm calling it Amish sausage, and it is for 100 pounds of meat. Now, I'm going to scale that down on the blog to 25 pounds, though I will put the 100-pound recipe in the Kowalski Mountain subscribers library. So if you really need a 100-pound recipe, you can download that for free in the Kowalski Mountain subscribers library if you become a member. Now, I have the Amish sausage recipe in my Recipe Keeper app for 100 pounds. So the adjust feature makes it super easy. I just adjust it down to the amount I want and the ingredients automatically adjust. This is super easy to adjust. So we're just going to come in here and push adjust. I'm going to change that to 25 pounds. I'm going to push OK. And then you can see that the recipe adjusted to 25 pounds of ground pork. It adjusted all of the spices. And then when I want to reset the recipe, I just push reset and it goes back to the original recipe. Pretty cool feature. Now, I use this app for all of my recipes, and you can find the review I did all about it right up here. But it puts all of my recipes right here on my phone, and it goes in my pocket. Now, before we make this, remember I had 14 pounds of meat. So I'm going to put up 4 pounds as ground pork. Now, we'll use ground pork just like we do ground beef. I will put it in spaghetti, I'll put it in chili, and we didn't get as much venison as we really wanted. So that's another reason that I've been grinding some of my other forms of meat, my chicken, if you saw that video, which I'll put right up here, and then also ground pork. Now, I love ground pork. I would do ground pork regardless if we had plenty of ground venison or not. Whoa, that never happens. That is perfectly 1 pound. It's the little things, y'all. It really is. Now I'm using my little sealer to seal my 1 pound bags. And this week I'm going to put a P for pork, because I don't actually have a specific pork freezer. I do have a poultry freezer, and I have a venison freezer, and then I have a couple of general freezers. One is an upright, which is my easy go-to freezer, which has a mixture of everything in it. And then we have another one. Oops, we have another one here on our deck that's kind of a pit. Now, I didn't tell you much about the Coonies. Now, like I said, we were given the Cooney hogs, and I'm actually glad we were given them because it allowed us to try out a new breed of pig without having to invest a lot of money into it. Now, Coonies, and ours are a mix, by the way, they are a smaller hog, and they take 2 years to grow out. But what I will say about them is they are super chill. Like, super laid back, very calm, very easy to handle. Now, I know I told you that the lady that got rid of them because they kept breaking out of her fences. We've never had that trouble. And our big hog, which is a He is a Duroc Hampshire mix. He has busted out of our fences a few times, and he's a handful. Now, the other nice thing about the Kune-Kunes is they're not real hard on your ground. Like, they do root, but not like those big hogs. Now, saying all that, you would think that I would be like a really big fan of the Kune-Kunes because they're so chill. They didn't give us trouble with the fences. But I am not actually a big fan of the Kune-Kunes because we actually butchered 2 hogs. And you see here, I'm only doing 14 pounds of sausage. Now, he is not completely done butchering. And if he finishes that before I publish this video, I will update you if I have any changes of the amount of meat we got from the 2 hogs. But it's just not a lot of meat for a 2-year time investment. Now, the same could be said about our Dexter cattle. We raise Dexter cattle because they are smaller. They do take longer to grow out, but we will still get a substantial amount of meat from Apollo, even though he is smaller. For that reason, I really do like my big hogs. Now, I will tell you right now that, you know, Philip and I are not getting any younger. We are both 53. And right now we can still handle those big hogs. But there may come a time in our life that we can't handle those big hogs, or we don't want to. And we very may well switch to the smaller hogs. That is a real benefit to the smaller hogs, that they're so easy to handle, so chill. They don't even really act like pigs. Not big hogs anyway. All right. Now I did my 4 pounds of ground pork. I'm gonna cover this back up because those flies, I have been going around like a crazy woman, but I can't get them all. We're going to start mixing up the seasoning. Now you can imagine here on the homestead we go through a lot of salt. Now this is Redmond's real salt, and I buy it in bulk. Now I'm going to use this for the sausage. Now I need to fill up my salt container. Now a little fun fact, this was my grandma's funnel, and I'm going to be honest, it's not my favorite funnel. Whoops. Mostly because it has a much narrower opening than the one I was using for the meat. But it always reminds me of her. Now when you buy Redmond's real salt, or real salt for that matter from any company that does not have anti-caking agents in it, you are going to have salt that cakes up. But you know what? It's okay, because I know it's real salt. Now Redmond's real salt is mined in Utah from an underground seabed. And that's why it's kind of pink, but it also has minerals in it. So you're going to see little flecks of mineral in the salt. That's perfectly normal. And the mineral is good for you. Now I am photographing this for the blog at the same time that I'm videoing it. So that's why I'm going to put all of my ingredients into little containers. Now, because I'm scaling this down from the 100 pounds, it's going to have some odd measurements in it. The first thing I'm going to measure out is salt. Now that we have been getting to know our Amish community so well, we have started buying a lot of things from the Amish food store that we have here locally. And for my sausage, I chose coarse black pepper versus fine black pepper. Now it also has some cayenne pepper in it. You know what? think I had another partial jar. I'm going to start with a small one first. Now some garlic powder. And I need some ground mustard, and that is it. This is a very simple recipe, but it has a great flavor. Now I'm kind of an organization, not that you can really tell by me living in an RV, but if I had more space, I would be more organized. I keep my spices in Trello because I have a very vast collection of spices, and that way I can find them without so much trouble. Now normally this information would be in the recipe itself, but I don't have that particular one set up. Alright, so I have these measured out. Now I'm going to go photograph that, and I'll be right back. Now one of the things I like to do when I'm making this recipe is I like to mix all of the spices together because I want to be sure to mix this through the meat thoroughly. And I just think it's easier to do it as a blend rather than to sprinkle the individual spices throughout the meat. Now I'm going to sprinkle this throughout. And then once it's sprinkled on, we're going to mix it in. Now, I like to use my hands for this process. Now, I know that that probably upsets some people here, but you know what? This is our food. We make it for our family. We don't sell it. And one thing you will learn if you are interested in the homestead space is that you are very hands-on with your food. Now I could use tongs to do this, but it's too easy to not mix it well using tongs. And with my hands, I can get underneath, I can really stir it together well to ensure those seasonings penetrate all of my meat. And I can actually smell the spices. Keep that covered. I'm going to go wash, and we're going to be ready to bag it up. I've already prepped my bags for packaging. I turned down the tops and I marked them with an S for sausage, and I am ready to bag this up. Now I did talk to you about this earlier. This is one of my homesteading hacks. These bags can be really difficult to fill. Now you can use a sausage press to fill them, or you could use a special funnel that's made for them. But that special funnel costs about $70. Now, I'm kind of a cheapskate, and I don't like to spend $70 on something that is unnecessary. Now, I would totally spend it if I thought it was worth it. And I am going to do this using a canning lid. Now, this is a regular mouth canning lid. It goes on the jar like this. I'm going to turn it like this. I fit my bag through this, and then I just pull that part that I folded down over the top. Now this does two things. It gives me a handle, and it keeps the opening of that bag open. My canning funnel fits right on top of that regular mouth lid. Now I am balancing this. It can easily tip, but it helps keep the top of the bag from getting so messy because I hit the mark. Now I can use my tongs and fill my bag with my beautiful sausage. I have my scale with a cup in it, and the cup just makes the bag stand up. So I'm a little over a pound. There, that's better. Now you can see how easy it was to fill that bag. And trust me, I have some other videos about grinding meat of different kinds, and you can see how much harder it is. Now these bags you just twist. I use this little contraption. This is tape. And I twist and it seals the bag. And this is ready to go in the freezer. When you process meat in bulk, this takes a while. 10 pounds isn't going to be too bad. Now, for those of you that are faithful Kowalski Mountain viewers, Ellie had her calf, and we have the first heifer calf born on the homestead. I am so excited, y'all. Now, we have named her Kowalski Mountain Sunshine. And I'm calling her Sunny. Now her name came about because I went out this day after she was born, that next morning, and I said, "Good morning, sunshine." And that's just a greeting to me. My mother always said that to me when I was little, and I said it to my kids, and I say it to my grandkids. It's just a greeting. But Philip said, "Do you want to call her Sunshine?" And I was like, "Okay, let's name her Sunshine." Now Sunny will be sold as much as I want to keep her. I don't want to breed her back to her dad, and we have no intention of getting rid of Prince. Now Prince is really docile, which most Dexter bulls do have that reputation of being docile. And there may come a day that he doesn't meet our farming goals anymore, but for now, Prince has a place here on the farm. Now, what I would like to do with her, honestly, which I probably won't, because the thing about calves and the baby animals that we raise is they make it possible to keep the breeding animals that we keep. So selling a calf makes way to buy the hay that feeds the adults in the winter. And we need them to support themselves and pay for their own hay. So Sunny will need to be sold for that reason as well. But what I would love to do is to find another Dexter breeder that lives right here locally that has a equal calf. You know, she's going to be registered. She's done in color, which I don't really care about the done. Philip does. I like red. I would have red cows. I would have a red bull. So far, all of Prince's calves have been done in color. So we're probably going to have done calves. But I would either want a red or done calf, and then just trade, an equal trade for equal animals, just so that we can mix up our genetics without paying a lot of money. Doing something like that will probably depend on what Meg has. Meg's calf is due in April. And I'm really curious what she'll have. These are going to go in the freezer to freeze. I'm going to have some lunch and then we're going to make the bacon. Now I cooked up just an ounce or so, not hardly any. And it's good. It's really good. I have made this recipe quite a few times. And every time I make it, I feel like the amount of spices in it is not enough. But it is. It's not an overpowering sausage, but it has a really nice flavor to it. Now that sausage seemed a little dry to me, but those pigs were very lean. We didn't pull any fat off them at all because they were just so lean. So as a result, the sausage is a little bit lean also. That will not be a problem with the one remaining kuni that we have. I'm going to take you outside and show you him. I call him Fatso. You're going to see why in a second. Hi, baby piggies. Baby. Hi, Chocolate Chip. I'm looking at your babies. They are so cute. Those are sweet babies. Yes, they are. Sweet babies. You're a mess. Oh, such little ones. Oh. It's Miss Piggy and Kermie. And this is Fatso. You can see where he gets his name. Now these hogs do weigh about 200 pounds. So they're not a small pig. They're just not as big as the full-grown hogs, or full-size hog. Now he has a lot of fat on him. You wagging your tail, buddy? You can see how laid back he is, how easygoing. He's super, super laid back. Now he's not, he doesn't let me really pet him or anything. Now Oreo is our big boar, and he weighs closer to 600 pounds.
I don't need kisses. Look. What? You gonna help me with your bowl? Well, help me with it. Back. No. Don't touch my fence.
Oh my goodness. Are you guys hot? It's been so cold and now it's hot. You don't know what to think about that. Now I just opened up the refrigerator to make my lunch, and look what I found. Another bin of meat that needs to be ground. Now, I knew that was in there. It was in too many places. It was in a cooler. It was in the little refrigerators out on the deck. I have 2 little refrigerators out there. I didn't check both of them. I only checked one. And then someone was in here, and now I gotta grind some more. And I found a second bin. So I'll put on the screen how much more meat I found to grind. That's going to probably become ground pork. I don't know. Anyway, I won't make you stick around for that. I'll do that after the bacon. All right, I'm ready to start the bacon. I have weighed my pork bellies and they weigh about 7.5 pounds. So I used my recipe keeper app to adjust my recipe for 7.5 pounds. Now I told you for the bacon we're going to be using a different salt. And I'm actually going to be using kosher salt. And the type of grain of salt does matter. It has different effects on the way it works with the meat preservation process. Now this might be Redmond salt. Let me look. Yes, this is a Redmond salt as well. Because I don't use my kosher salt very much, I do keep it wrapped in a bag just to help with moisture in here. Alright, so to do the pork bellies I need 1.5 cups of kosher salt. This is a gamma lid. It allows me to get into these buckets easier because these are buckets I use more frequently. Now on some of my extra grains, I should go the right way. On some of my extra grains, the ones that are like the buckets I refill from, I don't put a gamma lid on it. I just put a regular lid on it because I don't get into it often. Now the next thing I need for my bacon here is brown sugar. And I do not use brown sugar. I make my own. So I'm going to do 1.5 cups of regular sugar. And this is raw sugar, which is why it's got that golden color to it. And now to make that into brown sugar, I'm just going to add molasses. And because I'm making a mix, I don't have to pre-mix it. I can just throw it on in there and mix it all together. Now I do buy my molasses by the gallon, but I keep a small jar in the house that I can use, and I needed to fill it up. Now I like dark brown sugar, so I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons of molasses. And this is 1/2 tablespoon. In hindsight, I wish I would have mixed all the sugars and salt first and then added the molasses as the final step. But we live and learn. Now the last thing that's in my bacon cure is curing salt. And you only need a little bit of this. So this is 2 1/4 teaspoons. Now I'm going to stir it up. Now, these are 2, oops, you can't even see it. My bacon is in a 2-pound Ziploc bag. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just rubbing this cure all over it. And I really kind of want to do them both in the same bag. I told you that when you start homesteading, you're very hands-on with your food. Now, making bacon is a process. This is going to be refrigerated in this cure for 7 days. And every day I am going to flip it. And then on the 8th day, Philip will smoke the bacon, and there's some other steps to it as well, but he will smoke it, and we will have bacon. Now, it's kind of a salty bacon, but it's strangely addictive. This is going to go in the fridge to do the curing time. Now, friends, as always, I really appreciate you watching, especially to the very end. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button. I'd love you to be a part of the Kowalski Mountain family. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.